Hi, I'm Paul Camillos and welcome to Shooting the Breeze. Join me and the STB crew for Series 8. Just hit that subscribe button and if you enjoy the pod, share it and give it a like.
I think Veal had said something along the lines of it's no surprise that winning comes where Agnes is. And I was like, that's really cool for someone to say that. Like, you know, it kind of like made me, you know, obviously like scoring and like all that kind of stuff is a huge part of basketball. But I think for me, and I've had a couple coaches now say it, they're like, you impact winning in so many different ways. And I feel like Veal was the first person I'd ever heard that from.
Welcome to Shooting the Breeze. I'm Paul Camillos, and in this episode, we're joined by a player who's made waves in Australia and overseas, and we can comfortably say is in the early stages of her career. Having played at the AIS, Stanford and TCU before launching a WNBL career with the Sydney Flames and backing up from an NBL1 National Championship with the Knox Raiders, we're really pleased to be joined by Agnes Emma-Nnopu. Agnes, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. Really excited to be here.
I'm actually going to go off schedule straight away. I wanted to find out from you, you know, how did you feel when you signed, you know, with the Flames for 3 years? Because, you know, it's a significant commitment from both your part, on your part, and also on the team's part.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'd say until I started speaking to other players and they're like, oh, you signed 3 years, I didn't know that signing a 3-year deal, like straight off the bat, was something that people considered a bit like, oh, like crazy. I think it's also just because of the whole college situation. Like you kind of come into a college and you commit to 4 years and it's like, you know, it's something that I'm very used to. So I didn't have any kind of hesitancy with it. I guess signing with the Flames, like Guy was a big part of my development before I headed off to college. When COVID was rampant in Melbourne, I was able to get into the gym with the Melbourne Boomers and practice and do indies with Guy before team practices. So that was a huge reason why I, kind of made that commitment.
Cool. And, you know, so after your first year, how do you find Sydney, the city, but also Hoops Capital and what they're doing at the club?
Yeah. I love Sydney. I feel like my Melbourne friends are not going to be big fans of me saying this, but Sydney is definitely somewhere I could see myself settling down. I feel like you the best of both worlds. You have like the city aspect of everything, but then the beach is literally right there. Whereas I feel like if you want to get good beaches here in Victoria, you kind of have to drive away from the city, whereas it's all kind of clustered in one in Sydney. So big fan of the living situation. In terms of Hoops Capital, they've been nothing but great to me. I really enjoy just like the people amongst the community. I feel like they are really communicative. They've kind of just welcomed me in as a family. And I think that also was a huge aspect. Talking to, I guess, the GM and the coaches, it just felt like a really easy decision to commit to Sydney for 3 years. It just felt very much like a family.
Cool. It's, I suppose, one of the things that a lot of people might find interesting is that you found it so easy to commit for 3 years because you were used to the whole college experience of committing for 4. Now, I want to touch on college a little bit because, you know, you rolled into Stanford, NCAA win with Stanford in 2021, and then you transferred to TCU. And I'm sure a lot of people have probably asked you about this. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of people look at a school like Stanford and they kind of go, well, you know, that's one of those pinnacle schools, Stanford, Duke, UConn. And then you transferred to TCU, which I'm sure a lot of people, not everybody, but some people would kind of look at it and go, that's a really interesting choice. So I'd like to understand from you how you went through that whole thought process of, you know, Stanford to TCU and how you found, you know, being at TCU as well.
Yeah. So I think it really helps that, like you said, Stanford is like one of those pinnacle schools. And one thing that I'd said if I was going to transfer was I've been here for this many years. Like I want to leave with my degree. Like I think coming into college, I had a whole checklist of things that I was looking for from a university. obviously great basketball, like a family feel, good education, because I was kind of brought up, like basketball is, a huge part of your life, but like you need to have something to fall back on. So education was always kind of ingrained in me. And then also just like location. I was like, young Black woman moving to America. There's obviously, areas that I would probably deem more safe for someone like me versus areas that I don't. And I was like, California kind of is up there.
Yeah.
So I did the 4 visits. I went to, like you said, schools. Like visited Duke. I visited Texas. And at that point, I wasn't ready to be in a place like Texas. I think it was just, And then the California, then I visited Boston College. All great schools, but Stanford just kind of ticked those boxes for me. And I think being there for that 3 years, I had so many great leaders to look up to as a young player. Obviously, freshman year winning a national championship, I'm like, I've achieved what majority of college players will never get the chance to achieve. Like I was on a national championship team, regardless of if I played any minutes or if I didn't. And so I was kind of like, really loved my time there and enjoyed my teammates, enjoyed the school as a whole. So the move to TCU really was, I kind of put away that checklist that I had coming in as a young player. And I was like, for me to, make something of my career, I need to go somewhere where I feel like, and like, not to say like defense and rebounding have always been huge parts of my game, but I feel like I came into college being someone that, was known in the Australian basketball as like a pretty prolific scorer. And I feel like I kind of got pushed to the side when I went to school for the first 3 years. I was like, I want to be somewhere where, like it's not like, oh, we want someone else to shoot it, because if you're shooting it, who's going to rebound? So for me, TCU was just an opportunity. It was a whole new coaching staff coming in. Like you could look at their record and be like, why would she go there? But it wasn't going to be the same coaches who had that previous like 1-17 record in the Big 12. I had a lot of conversations with a lot of different coaches, and I kind of came in with the mindset of, I'm going to talk to players who are at these universities. I'm going to record these calls so I can look back and like see if there's any kind of iffiness with what I'm hearing. But talking to Mark Campbell and talking to Chabi Lopez, the coaching staff that was now going to be taking over TCU, I guess I just saw myself as part of what they were envisioning for the program. They had been at Sac State and turned it around from a losing program to a mid-major team who made the NCAA tournament in a 2-year time period. And I was like, you know what? Like I've been part of those winning teams and like been a role player on that, but like I want to be one of those, I want to be someone who like, when I go back to TCU, it's like, oh, Agnes was kind of one of those front runners and helped TCU become what it is. And honestly, it worked out how it worked out. So yeah, that was definitely a big part of my decision, just the opportunity.
Yeah, I suppose a lot of people, and particularly if they haven't been through the whole process like you have, don't really understand all the different variables that you have to weigh up when you're making a decision, like not only just, the first school that you commit to, but also if you decide that you do want to transfer to another school, you're walking away from, a 2, maybe 3 years of already being at a school to go somewhere else and in effect start again.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, that's a challenging step to take, even though, like, yes, you sort of like aligned with the new coaching staff and everything else. How nervous were you when you took that first step onto the TCU campus and kind of realized, I'm here now?
Yeah. I think definitely very nervous, but I had so many conversations with those coaches that it kind of like eased. And I feel like coming in as a freshman, you're kind of like, I don't really want to step on toes. I want to, fit in and like make friends. Whereas I feel like when I transferred to TCU, it was like I came in slightly later than most of the girls at TCU because Stanford is a quarter system school. Yeah. So we didn't finish up until I want to say June, July, and they were starting summer workouts at TCU June, July. So then they, the coaches obviously gave me a little bit of a break because I just finished graduation at Stanford. So like, you can go home for like 2 weeks, then come join us like when we officially start summer instead of just those pre-workouts. So I was again coming in like late, but I was like, you know what? I'm coming in and I'm stepping on throats type of thing. And I feel like I came in and like, obviously, I just graduated and I'd had like spring break. I'd went to Coachella. So the coaches were like, oh, like, like Agnes has had a pretty relaxing couple of weeks. Like, I'm not sure how she's going to come in, but in that time, I had obviously been like working out, staying in shape. So like they had the team do a pre-fitness test. So they had done the beep test and they'd set like a standard for them.
Yeah.
And then they then had us repeat it when I had come. And the plan was like, okay, you're going to do it this first time. We'll see what you get. Like there's no pressure. Like we know you've been, you went to spring break with your friends, you went to Coachella, you went back home. Like we're not putting that much expectation on what score you get, but these are what we hope that you would get. And so when I did it, I did the test and I scored above what they wanted me to get. The head coach, Mark, called me that evening. He said, I was very impressed and shocked, honestly, because I thought you'd just been partying this whole time. I was like, Mark, like I was just enjoying senior spring, but of course I was working out. Yeah. So it was just like, I came in with a whole different mindset, which I feel like when you're coming in, and hopefully like I think the girls and younger players nowadays just know that like they kind of know more about college basketball, and they know that, the Americans have this kind of like if you want to be competing at the same level, you got to come in with like that I'm her mentality. So I think I came in with that at TCU, and I wish that I had, someone who would talk to me about that and been like, like you got to walk into Stanford with like a chip on your shoulder, first instance. Yeah.
I kind of find that little bit you've just thrown in there really interesting, because it's almost like you're saying, I got to walk onto the floor and I own the floor.
Yes, exactly.
So
you gotta think of it like, I really like the saying where it's like, when you go, obviously when you're younger, you're kind of like a big fish in a small pond when you're doing all that high school basketball, all that kind of stuff. I feel like moving to the AIS, it was like, I'm like a big fish in a big pond now. And then college is that like amplified 1,000 times. And I think you got to walk in with that mentality that, yes, this is, a stage where everybody's like a very even playing field. Everyone is like talented. Everyone's athletic. Like my athleticism is going to get me over the edge, but I am still like that big fish. It's just, the pond is now maybe the ocean. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you think about what you're saying, it's like, it seems like, particularly over the last few years, there's this X factor that's had players have to develop, not only just for college, but also for career after college, which is, stamping your personality and making people sort of go, yeah, that is Agnes. Now, that's a really hard thing to do. Because, you're into college, you're playing, you're studying, you're training, you don't have a lot of time to actually kind of think that stuff through for yourself. How did you do that?
I think it definitely came with age and time. I had a lot of, like I said, a lot of really good mentors and older girls who I kind of just watched. And like, for me, the ones who succeeded and kind of went on to continue playing and just be names that we kind of know now, they had something that, like everybody can shoot, everybody can score, and pretty like most people can defend, but it's like you need to have something that's kind of like your hook. And I feel like that was something Stanford definitely taught me. Like when you walk onto the court, it's like you could have the worst shooting game of your life, but you can still be up there in efficiency. You can still be up there in plus minus in a score sheet because you have something that kind of differentiates you from everybody else. And I think for me, it was just like understanding that, I can shoot and yes, I can score, but like sometimes the ball's not going to go in, but I walk in there knowing that I'm going to lock up their best player and that I'm going to out rebound the 6'6" post player type of thing.
It's a big statement. It's a bold statement, but when you're playing on a stage like that, it's probably something that you really need to have.
Yes. And I did a lot of, I wish I had done it earlier in my college career, but I really utilized sports psychology like that because they have so many resources there. So there was a sports psychologist that was at our disposal and you could just book appointments and go see. And I really utilized that, I would say, my last 3 years of college. So my last year at Stanford, when I was trying to make that decision of whether I was going to transfer or not, it also really helped that I was going to get my degree. I feel like that took a lot of pressure off of, because a lot of universities, I think it's different now with NIL and everything like that and like how your courses transfer over, but a lot of universities don't really take transfers in their junior year. And I was also blessed enough to have that COVID year. So it was like, I was the appeal of, okay, she's a graduate and she's going to be transferring, but she also has 2 years left with us. Yeah. So that was a big appeal, but I utilized sports psychology and they just helped me kind of develop a lot of Like, I'm still working on it and trying to remain like confident when like, you know, you have a bad shooting game or something like that. But that kind of like confidence that doesn't teeter into ego, that is what I think. I feel like this younger generation are honestly like pretty solid at it. And I think social media has helped a lot with it. But yeah, just like continuing to be, you know, like I know who I am and like I'm, you know, you walk onto the court and think that you're better than everybody you're playing against.
I found it. I was really surprised when you said, you know, social media has helped with developing that attitude, because in the past we've spoken about social media and the effects of social media on players. And quite often it's been the exact opposite. People have said, you know, they stay off social media and they stay away from it because the truth is it can be a cesspool.
100%. Definitely. But I think it's a double-edged sword, because I do believe exactly what you're saying in terms of that. I think what I'm referencing is like you have like platforms like Baseline Hoops and things like that, and it's like they're like promoting Oz Hoopers, and these reels are getting hundreds of thousands of views, and you have people in the comments saying like, oh my god, like who is this player or this player, that kind of stuff. So it's like, then say those kids are looking at that video, like see their names being, you know, like these young upcoming hoopers, they're like, okay, I really am what I think I am, type of thing. Yes. But again, I think that validation should always just come from within.
Oh, sure. I mean, there's nothing that substitutes for that.
Exactly. Yes. And I think that is really what sports psychology kind of helped. I kind of changed. I was very like, I need to be perfect type of thing, but sports psychology has really helped me with, you know, like I'm a lot more process oriented versus outcome. You know, like I could literally do the exact same shooting routine and make the shot versus miss it. But, you know, like I did what I normally do. And then also just like, I know that my self-worth doesn't come from basketball.
Cool. Yeah. Now, I want to jump away from basketball for a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's related to something you mentioned just a short while ago. You said, you know, between Stanford and TCU, you managed to get home. And just before we started recording, we had a quick chat about your recent travels. You really rack up those frequent flyer miles.
I did. I've actually got a flight booked to the Gold Coast on June King's birthday already. So yeah, I did.
So first of all, related to the college thing, how often did you be able to get home, or did you have family visit you in the States? Yeah,
I was very blessed enough that my parents, once the COVID restrictions kind of went away, that they came and visited me not pretty frequently. It was probably like twice a year, but it was more, my mom and dad both came to my Stanford graduation. They both came to my TCU graduation. In that same year, my mom also came to like senior night. They've come to, I want to say like 1 or 2 Thanksgiving tournaments over there. Okay. They got to recently go and see my sister graduate. So they've come over like a handful of times and got to see a lot of milestones, which has been really cool. And then in terms of going home, other than my first year of college, which I think I was overseas for maybe 18 months, or maybe just over a year, I think. There hasn't been a period within college that I didn't get to come home for like maybe a couple weeks that broke up it being longer than a year. So I got to come home pretty often, which was good. And then when I didn't, I've spent Christmases with had some really cool teammates who have allowed me to like spend Christmas with them. Yeah. One of my like best friends from Australia, Izzy Palmer, I've spent a couple Christmases and stayed with her because she has family in the States. So just had people who have like taken me in as their own and then had the chance to come back and, you know, see the fam. That's great. And it seems to be something that happens a lot in the college circles, is that even despite you might be at different schools, even if they're at different schools, the Australians in college tend to try and connect as much as possible. Yeah, definitely. It's just because we're all in the same, you know, kind of boat. And Palmer got me through a lot of things in college, and I feel like I hope to say that she thinks that I got her through a bunch of stuff as well. But it's just nice to, you know, like you're literally doing the same thing as one of your best friends, and it's cool to just stay in touch and, you know, yeah. Now, you just came back from a big trip. Yes. Just a few weeks ago. We won't talk about the Vegas part. We'll just leave that aside. But, you know, you're traveling for, you said, about 6 weeks. Yeah. How did you find that whole trip, and what were the highlights for you? Mm-hmm. I loved that whole trip. I literally still have pictures that I want to post, and I'm like, the people on Instagram probably sick of seeing it, because I've heard people say to me every time that they post it, they're like, I don't want to see this anymore. I'm just jealous. And I was like, sorry guys, but I got so much content to post. But no, it was such an awesome trip. It was really nice because I got to catch up with so many friends in the States. San Francisco obviously is like where Stanford is pretty much located. So I don't know. I have never mentioned this to you guys, but I was in a sorority at Stanford. It was nice to just kind of have like friends away from the basketball team and meet lots of different people. So while I was over in San Francisco, I caught up with not just my old Stanford teammates, but also some of my sorority sisters. I actually stayed with one of them for a little bit, and then just got to like catch up with friends. I got to see my brother and sister. The sister one we went and saw each other in Vegas, but that hadn't been added in the trip until I landed in the States. So that was really cool. And then got to see, because now my younger brother, he's almost up to 1 year of being in the States, and he was he's very introverted. So to see him go out and like, explore the world and he's playing college basketball, but it's at like the NAIA level. So to see him do that and, live away from home and do all that kind of stuff, it was very cool. And then I got to catch up and watch an NCAA tournament game at TCU. Even got to practice with the girls and help them get prepared for the Sweet 16. So it's really cool to catch up with the team. Got my TCU ring that we had last year, so got presented with that.
Wow.
It was really cool. And then I also, you make so many connections and so many friends, and I had a wedding in Indiana of my athletic trainer at TCU. So I got to see her get married. Never been to a wedding before, so that was really cute. And then obviously did the whole Europe, and I did the first part of Europe, which was Italy, with one of my best friends from Stanford, who we did 2 years together. Then I transferred, then she ended up transferring to USC, and now she's playing for the Washington Mystics. So me and Kiki did 6 days in Italy. Hands down my favorite country. I love it there. I love it. And then got to do the remainder of the trip. We did Portugal, Barcelona, France, and the Netherlands with my best friend from home, Brandy. So it was just really cool. I think for me, the favorite part was just like seeing all these people and like making memories that I'll remember forever with these people. And also the food. The food in Italy, incredible. I could not think of anything else I'd want to eat than paella. So Spain, loved. And then I had a pastry pretty much everywhere we went. I think I was having a pastry a day. Yes.
Well, look, I got to agree with you. There is nothing like a really good paella. They are just amazing.
10 out of 10. It was fire. And it was a seafood one. Delicious.
Seafood ones are awesome.
Yes, it was awesome. Literally eating it right by the beach. Weather was warm. Yeah, fire.
Okay, now, you went to the Netherlands. I got a question for you. Do you like licorice?
It's not my choice of candy.
Oh, okay.
No. But I like red licorice, I'm fine with. I wouldn't go for black licorice, no.
Okay, good. I was going to ask because I don't know if you know, in Holland, their licorice is salty.
I did not
They've
know
got
that.
salt in it, which, because me personally, I do not like aniseed at all. Just do not like it.
Yeah.
But I can eat Dutch licorice because it's got the saltiness in it. It just changes the flavour. I was just going to say, in case you'd tried it, because sometimes people sort of go, oh, yuck, and it's one of those things, it divides people. You either really like it or you totally dislike it. There's no middle ground.
Okay. No, I didn't try it. It'll be my next. I'm already planning my next trips. I'll have to test it out.
Okay. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that one. I want to go right back because you came to Australia at a very young age from Nigeria. And Nigeria is becoming a real powerhouse in basketball.
Yes.
Looking back at it now, looking back at your family history and looking at how Nigeria is developing in basketball, you're here in Australia, you're playing in Australia. How do you see Nigeria as a basketball nation?
Well, outside of basketball, period, they call, I think other African countries refer to Nigeria as Africa's giant, just because they are, always producing so many, very well-known athletes. I think in in FIFA, they're pretty up there in terms of the competitiveness within the continent. Like if you look across the NBA, and I think I've talked about this with Kiki because she's also Nigerian. If you were to, these athletes weren't like considered like Giannis. It was like, okay, if he wasn't, he's Greek, right?
Yeah.
Yes. If you had all these Nigerian athletes who also didn't have their other like, kind of Western background and they only had their Nigerian passport, I think those teams would be, I don't know if they would be beating the US, but they'd be like very, very up there. So
they'd definitely be up there.
Yeah, be up there. But it's really cool to see. I feel like one of like the mass producers of such athletic talent, it just kind of shows that, like you can't look down on a country just because they live a different lifestyle to what you deem as like normal. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, we've had Coach Liz Mills on, and she's talked a few times, and she's talked so much about Africa and African basketball. And we've also had another guest, Queen John Mosep, who does. Do you know of Queen?
Like, is she playing in the WNBA?
No. She's a journalist.
Oh no, I don't.
And she's also doing a great job of bringing news of what's happening in Nigerian basketball to the rest of the world. I find it really interesting that so many people don't necessarily give Nigeria the kudos the country deserves for, as you said, the quality of athletes that are coming from that country.
100%. And I think it even just speaks volume. I think it was the most recent Olympics, right? Or was it the World Cup? And like obviously like Australia and Nigeria matched up, and my family and I were both all following that game, and Nigeria took out the win against Australia. It's just like
the first game of the Olympics.
Yes. And it was just like my mom was like texting in the chat. She's like, Nigeria. It just shows like, like Australia is obviously one of the top ranked country in women's basketball, and for Nigeria to, be up there and like play such a competitive match that they win it. It's like the quality and caliber of athletes coming out of the country it's awesome. I feel really proud to like, have that Nigerian flag in my bio and tell people that I'm Nigerian. Yeah.
Yeah, I think give it a few more years, the trajectory that Nigerian basketball is on, they're going to be surprising a lot of countries.
100%, definitely.
So a little while back, you mentioned the AIS.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was doing a bit of research, you mentioned that Kristen Veal was a strong influence on your development.
Yes, definitely.
So I'd really like to find out from you, what was it about Veal that influenced you in your game, in your time at the AIS?
Yeah, I feel like for me, Veal was just someone who, I don't know, she just poured a lot of confidence in me, and just like the way that she carries herself was with like a lot of swagger, and like, that she's like played at the highest levels, and she's been, like a face of Australian basketball. And she was just kind of inspirational in the way that I'm like, what she has us doing in the workouts that she has. Like, I remember one time it was, what was it? I was in year 12 and I had like found a way that I didn't have to go to class in the morning on the Thursdays because I was like pretty good at school. And I just said, we're not really learning anything in English right now. Can I just do the assignments and then not come? And they were fine with that. And Billy's like, if you're not going to school on Thursday mornings, like, you've got to be in the gym with me in the morning. And I was like, you know what? I know that, but for you to say that to me, like, you really want to see me kind of thrive and like achieve my dreams. And I think she just pushed me, and she was just very like, those coaches that people say like ride you. She was one of those coaches, but it was never in a negative way. It was just like, she was definitely one of the coaches that like influenced me to like continually want to be in the gym and just continually getting better. Even if it wasn't like, the sessions don't have to be exactly the same, but like the fact that I was stepping into the gym and I was, working on X, Y, and Z, even if it was for like 30 minutes, whatever time I had, she was someone who pushed me to be in the gym. And I think the AIS was a big part of like when my shooting kind of started to improve. I feel like I was always more of a driver. And then she helped me, we did a lot of shooting workouts and just put a lot of confidence. She always, at graduation, whenever we leave the AIS, she always like leaves, like kind of gives everybody a word that describes and like encapsulates what she felt like they embodied. And the word that she gave me was elite. And I feel like when I'm kind of down on myself, or like, I always go back to that word. I'm like, if the head coach of the AIS like gave you the word elite, like you are elite, and you need to believe that and continue to practice and play like that.
Yeah, that like a coach like Veal,
Mhm.
they don't give out false praise.
Yeah.
They're very much this is the way I see you. So
Yeah.
that's huge props.
Yes.
Hearing that coming from Veal.
100%. And I think it was after our national championship win. And obviously, I wasn't a big part of the on-court basketball stuff. As a freshman, I was kind of just sitting and like cheering on and like, the minutes that I got. But I think it was, I don't know, it might have been like the CEO Instagram or something like that. But my mom had screenshotted it and sent it to me. She said, I think Veal had said something along the lines of it's no surprise that winning comes where Agnes is. And I was like, that's really cool for someone to say that. Like, it kind of like made me, obviously like scoring and like all that kind of stuff is a huge part of basketball, but I think for me, and I've had a couple coaches now say it, they're like, you impact winning in so many different ways. And I feel like Veal was the first person I'd ever heard that from. That's
huge props coming from somebody like that with her experience and who's seen, a lot of players, not only at the AIS, but also in competition and around the world. And at that point, about you being there when teams win. I'm going to take it back to TCU for a second because, that time that you had in TCU, yes, there was new coaching staff. They were really trying to turn the program around. But, as a team, you guys really switched it up. You went, in the NCAA, Elite 8, you were Big 12 champions. It's a big shift for a college that had gone through some pretty tough times.
Yeah, definitely. It was just, I don't know. I feel like we just had, that last year, we had a group of, I think the coaches they put it really well. We had a group of winners. We had people who had a lot of seniors and it was like, this is our last chance. We want to leave not just a legacy, but we want to end our college careers on what, like on a high type of thing. Yeah. And like we had been told the first sort of, it was just like milestone after milestone it felt that year. The first thing was we beat ranked NC State, then we beat ranked Notre Dame. We did go down to South Carolina pretty badly, but it was fine. And then it was like TCU had never beaten Baylor. They hadn't beaten Baylor in 25 years. And, we were like, we're going to be the team to do that. And then that season, not only did we beat Baylor, we beat them at home for the first time to break that streak. Then we beat them at their home to win the and like we were both tied at the top. So, our whole goal was like, how are we going to get to winning a regular season championship? Because, tournaments, it depends who plays the best that game. But like the regular season is like, you put in the work and that if you win this, you are the best team there type of thing. And we were tied with Baylor, and it just happened that the last matchup of this regular season was TCU versus Baylor. Whoever wins it takes home the regular season championship. Yeah. We beat them at their home. So now TCU hadn't beaten them for 25 years, beat them twice in the same season. Somehow, not NCAA, Big 12 tournament. And I had a shoulder injury this tournament, and it was like, so I missed the first game. So I'm like, oh my God, like the team, they're going to pull through. We're going to make it to the next round because we were ranked 1 in our tournament. So I think we got a couple games off. Then we went into the quarterfinals. I was like, okay, we're just going to make it to quarterfinals. Yep. My shoulder stuff is going to like ease up and I'll be able to play. I feel like I think I played semi-final and then the grand final. And I felt like I was having such a horrible game in the grand final. And it happened to be matched up against Baylor. I don't know, there was just a couple back-to-back plays. Like, I was so in my head, but the coaches, like, continued to pour confidence into me. And then there was just a couple back-to-back plays where I think I got a stop. I had, like, an assist that led to, like, an and one or something like that. And it was just, like, the momentum was shifting our way. We ended up winning that game. So it's like, we haven't beaten Baylor in 25 years, and now we've beaten them 3 times in the same season. And that was like, it was just like it was just like milestone after milestone, and then TCU, we go to the NCAA, we're ranked a 2 seed, highest seed they've ever had. And then, make it to the Sweet 16. That I think they hadn't won. I think they'd only won a round 1 game. So then we win a round 2 game, and I've had arguably my best game of kind of like, in a big stage of my college career type of thing. Yeah. Just felt like, the ball and I were like connected. So it was kind of sick. And we go to the Sweet 16, again, another milestone. And then we obviously go to the Elite 8 and lose. But it just felt like, I think my caption on one of the posts, I think it was for the Big 12 tournament, it just felt like a full circle type of season, Freshman year, we did all these cool things and like won all these things. But, you know, I was obviously part of it, but it's kind of different feeling to be on the court and like within it versus like kind of on the bench and like cheering on. It just felt like full circle, because I'm like, you know what, I've earned this. Like I deserve to be one of the ones like carrying TCU to where we've gone this season. So it was just really sick.
It's an amazing story, and that you've just given us. And there's something I actually want to ask you, and I don't know if you've ever been asked this question before. You were just rattling off names of other colleges. A lot of those colleges really well known. When you started off your basketball journey and you first started to become aware of NCAA and the various colleges that are out there and their reputations, did you ever think that you'd be hitting the floor against schools like that and beating them?
No, I literally never did. And the thing is, I didn't know too much about college basketball until I did this like basketball Victoria country tour in like 2016. Went over there, actually started getting college interest over there. And I was like, oh, like, I don't even know what college is type of thing, you know? My parents were always like, basketball, like, that's a hobby, education. Yeah. And then that was like kind of my first insight to it. But no, it wasn't until, you know, I went on my college visits, and now I was like, oh, now I know like what teams I want to root for, like, or like before pre-college visits, and I'm like watching teams that have been talking to me. I'm like, oh wow, like I did not know any of this existed type of thing. But no, I would never have like guessed in a million years that these teams, like, you know, South Carolina, I'd be playing against them. And like, obviously at Stanford, we beat South Carolina to make it to the national championship game. I wouldn't have, 16-year-old Agnes would not have thought that at all. Yeah.
So I want to stay with college for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the education side of college. Because you just mentioned, you know, it was, your parents were sort of like, you know, basketball's a hobby, education's a thing. Now, again, during a little bit of research I was doing, you got some big goals there.
Yes.
Okay, so you've, sorry, I've just got to check my notes here. Human biology and kinesiology as well.
Yes.
So they're not what you would call lightweight subjects to be doing. That's a pretty significant load given all the basketball stuff you got to do. How'd you find that whole thing? You know, doing all of that work plus the basketball side of things.
Yes. I reckon my Stanford degree was because like as a freshman, sophomore and junior, you're going to class so much. And because I tried to graduate in 3 years.
Okay.
Tried and succeeded. But junior year was, so the way it works is you need 180 units to graduate. Like that's how many, like some classes, I think classes only go upwards to 5. So you'd have classes that are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is like the max. It's like a heavy class workload. And my junior year, only the start of it did I kind of like start thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe like, you know, I should look to, like if I graduate, then I can have the option of maybe I do a master's at Stanford, or I can have the option to transfer. Right. So this season, you can only take max 22 units a quarter. So every quarter that junior year, I took 22 units. But my last quarter, spring quarter, which is like, you know, we're off basketball, you know, I was honestly doing my own stuff because at that point I'd entered the transfer portal. 22 units would have had me at 179 units. So I wouldn't have graduated. I had to appeal to do a 23rd unit. So this last quarter, I was in 8 classes. And it wasn't even like 8, like, oh, fun, random class. It was like 8 classes where these were all my major classes. Like I needed these for my major. So I was like, I got to be locked in. Luckily for me, I had no exams. It was all just like paper based. The professor was very helpful. And I honestly had a great balance in terms of, I was like, once the week ends, I'm having like the weekend is mine to do, like, you know, actually enjoy senior spring. So I was able to balance it. And I think that the AIS helped with that because there was an instance I think I like wasn't prepared for a maths test or something like that. And I reached out to one of the assistant coaches and I was like, are you guys able to like try and get me an extension? But I did it day off. And they're like, you can't do that now. Like we're all good for you asking for help, but you have to have time management and be able to do these things like in advance. I think that helped me be able to, you know, like be able to plan and use my time well. And that's how I was honestly able to finish the degree. And then it really helped TCU. I did my master's program. I'd originally started in the biology master's program. But scheduling, just the classes were all in the morning, practice was all in the morning. So I was barely able to take any biology classes. And I took instead electives of kinesiology. And I was like, oh, kinesiology is like once a week. Like each class was once a week for like 2 hours, 40 minutes. The only because I had originally wanted to do the kinesiology major, but I was kind of steered away from it by the academic advisors because like you're gonna have to write a thesis, and we don't know how like plausible that's gonna be with basketball. And I was like, oh, okay, so I like listened to them. But my first semester at TCU, I took 3 classes. 2 of them were kinesiology, and I was like, this does not make any sense. So I like appealed. Reached out to professors because I had to have because I'd obviously developed a relationship with these kinesiology professors now and enjoyed their company. The cohort was like 6 people. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to see if any of these guys will take me on as a like professor mentor because you needed one to be able to do the thesis. So again, like that asking for help and like doing it in a timely manner, something that I had kind of taken from the AIS, I was implementing here. So I did that. A couple of professors agreed, found one that kind of aligned with what I wanted to, you know, jump into and study. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to tell my academic advisor that I'm switching to kinesiology. Now I'm a whole semester behind writing my thesis. So I'm like, oh my God. But this is a 2-year program. So it's like, I wasn't that behind, but obviously I hadn't really like started anything. I had to like do the proposal. There was obviously deadlines you had to meet. So I was kind of rushing to meet those while everyone was kind of like, you know, they had a lot of time to just chill. But it helped because there was only 4 semesters at TCU because they were semester based. So it was just big chunks. And I took the last 3 semesters. It was 2 classes per semester, 2 hours of 40 minutes once a week. So it was very chill, not a lot of exams, and like the professors were very helpful. I was able to work on my thesis, and I was actually one of the first people to do my thesis defense. By the end. That's also because I was like heading to New York to go and be there for Kiki for the WNBA draft and like hoping to have a training camp contract at that point. So like, you know what, I need to get everything done just in hopes that this training camp happens and I get to go away and like work out. So I was like, I need to do this. And you know what? It worked out. I got my thesis defense before a bunch of people. They're like, how did you even manage to do this? And I was like, you know what? I was told I couldn't, so I had to do it.
Yeah. You don't do it. You don't do it the easy way, do you?
No, not at all.
Okay, so just for those people who are listening, who actually don't know what kinesiology is, do you want to just give us the quick 2-minute rundown?
Yes. Well, okay, kinesiology is like movement science. It's, I guess, science of how the body moves, but the way the major worked at TCU was we had a bunch of electives. So my thesis was, the title of it, if I remember correctly, was like the impact of micronutrient intake on like cytokine levels. It was a dietary intervention on cancer survivors. So it had something to do more so with medical, but also like diet and things like that. But in the TCU major, we took classes like sports psychology, we took statistics because you had to analyze your statistics for your thesis. We took exercise physiology, biomechanics, advanced biomechanics. Like it was just a range of different classes. You got to pick the electives that you chose. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So again, you know, doing a bit of research, you plan, you know, just to make things a little bit more interesting for yourself, you're also planning to go to medical school one day, and not just to do anything, you know, like to do the GP thing or something like that. No. I'm understanding that it's neurosurgery.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that was also my concentration. So like Stanford was similar in the way that they didn't have a pre-med major. So a lot of pre-med students took human biology or they took biology and they just picked a concentration. So I concentrated in like neuroscience and human performance. So a lot of those like major classes that I was referencing earlier were to do with the brain. And I don't know, I just feel like my dad is a doctor and he's a GP, and like I, during COVID, had the opportunity to, they were short staffed, so I helped. I worked in reception and I was like, oh my goodness, I could think of nothing worse than sitting behind a desk for like 8 hours a day. I was like, I need to get up and move. And so I'm like, I've always been interested in medicine because of my dad. My mom's a nurse and she was a pharmacist as well, so she's in the medical realm. But like, I want to go into this career, but I want to be hands-on within this career.
I think more power to you, and I really hope you achieve it. It's probably a career that people don't necessarily link to professional athletes.
Yeah, that's true. Except there's one thing I'd say about that. I feel like being in college and just seeing they're not necessarily basketball. There was like other athletes who went into medicine, there's surgeons, all that kind of stuff. I feel like, I don't know, athletes just have this way of, especially being a college athlete, you know how to like really interact with people. And I think that is something sometimes the medical industry is missing. It's missing that human aspect. Whereas, I don't know, I feel like the experiences that you've gained in college and like, they really put you through kind of the ringer, and it's like, you know how you would want to be treated. And I think, I don't know, I just feel like athletes just make really good career people in lots of different, industries.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I've in my time in commerce, I've come across a lot of ex-athletes.
Yes.
In various sectors, and I think there's a whole lot of experiences that elite athletes get.
Yes.
From their playing career that can translate really well into the commercial world. Just as we're getting to the back end of the podcast, I want to bring things back to Australia for a minute. Let's talk about that first NBL1 championship with Knox Raiders. Yeah. We were there. We were at Canberra for the Nationals.
Yes. I remember.
Did a live pod from there and watched the game. And, what was that experience like for you? Back home, in Canberra, getting that championship. How did you feel?
Yeah, it was really awesome. I obviously grew up with Siebel. So before I left AIS and things like that, I got to be on the Siebel team as a 15-year-old, and we won the Siebel championship with Geelong Supercats. Yep. When they turned into United. So it was really cool to be part of that. And I feel like, we were the AIS were playing against the NBL1 South girls. So we were getting pummeled, but it was you get to play against these women and you're going up against some of the, best in Australia type of thing without it being in the WNBL. There's a lot more teams, a lot more competitions. It's not so condensed. I think coming back and having opportunity to just be with the Knox Raiders and the likes of Christy Wallace. Yep. She's someone who I've looked up to since I was younger. She was doing her rehab when I was at the AIS, and I got to chat a little bit with her. So coming into a team where there were players that, I've watched in the WNBL, and then I'm suiting up alongside them. And not only that, I think once we kind of got our whole team together, we went undefeated that entire season. And, there was it was cool because we matched up against in the South, the undefeated Geelong team, and everyone's like, oh, how are you guys gonna go? They haven't lost a game this season. And I was like, you know what, that's true, but since we've had our entire lineup, we haven't lost a game either. So it's a very even playing field. Yeah. And then same with, I think we played the NBL1 West champions, and they had been undefeated their whole season. So it was just cool to win it with those girls, but also take down two undefeated teams and to take home the championship. It was a very cool experience.
But you look back at it and describe it like that. It's an amazing experience, amazing outcome. And this year at Knox, you've got your Flames teammate Shanice Swain there as well. Yeah. So I'm wondering, how you guys will be finding it in terms of the player chemistry being together for the NBL1 season and then moving into WNBL.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to really help our chemistry. Shanice and I, not only were we teammates last year, we were also roommates. So we lived together last year, and we're also living together this year as well. We're living together currently in the NBL1 as well. I think just she's someone who I was friends with before at the AIS because we kind of crossed over for 6 months. But this last kind of 8-9 months, I feel like we've become really close, and I feel like that just reflects in the way that we play. Sometimes I'm playing the 4 in this Knox team, so we'll run a lot of pick and rolls, and she'll find me a lot, and I'll find her, I feel on drives. But I think this off season is definitely going to be huge for our chemistry, and it's been cool. Renee, our head coach, has come down and worked out with us since I've been back. Okay, and she's planning on trying to come down maybe couple times before preseason starts, and that again is also helping build our chemistry. Yeah, so it's been really cool to play with Swaney. Yeah,
because when you think about it, it's really not that far before WNBL preseason starts. Sure. You blink and you'll be there.
Yes.
And going back to the Flames, there's been a lot of announcements that have come out in terms of the roster changes. It must be exciting for you as a player to be part of a team that's starting to build a new roster with Renee as the head coach, shaping up to make a run at the finals. Because really, we would hope, as for Sydney, that the finals is an achievable goal.
Definitely. I feel like last year having Renee step in and step up as the head coach was really awesome. I feel like she, I've used this a lot. I feel like she truly poured confidence into me, and the style of basketball that she played just kind of really fit how, the kind of player that I am. And I think the roster we're building, all of those girls, Fawn, Jazz, Ali, and Charlize are all girls that I've, had things to do with in the past.
Yep.
Me and Bourne and Shelly played the U19 World Cup together. We were all on that same team, and those are girls that I lived with. Born at the AIS, so I'm pretty good friends with her. And then Jazz and I grew up playing Vic Country together and loved playing with her. I think her mum, when we played Geelong in NBL1 National, she's like, when are you going to play together? When are you guys going to finally play together? And in the DMs when she signed, I was like, finally we get to play together. So really excited. And then Charlize is a young talent who I've had bits and pieces to do with her college career, and just reaching out to each other about, the transfer portal and, best decisions and things like that. And then Ali obviously is incredible, and I cannot wait to play with all of them. I think that we have a very dynamic and just aggressive team, not just offensively aggressive, but a defensively aggressive team. And it's just a young team who wants to compete, wants to get better, and wants to take Sydney to a championship. So it's really exciting to see. I'm not sure who the next two signings will be, but I think they'll also just reflect that same vision and mindset that we all have and that Renee has for the team.
Yeah, we're all waiting to see who's going to be announced and how the team's going to finalise its structure. But it's looking exciting. It's going to be an exciting season, and look, even though things didn't go the Flames' way last season, there were times there where, because of the structure of the ladder,
yes,
it could have gone any which way.
No, seriously, I didn't give up hope until it was actually hope was done. I was like, oh my god, win this, we can still make finals type of thing. And I think those are the girls who had that same mindset. It just, like you said, it didn't go our way. But I think that back end of the season, we really just played a different brand of basketball. It just felt it just felt a lot more competitive, and also just, I don't know, for me, it just felt a lot freer.
Yeah, look, from our perspective, watching the games, you could see that the whole style of play evolved and changed, from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. It looked like it really looked like you were having a lot more fun on the floor at the back end of the season. So that really translated into performances. And, unfortunately, with some of there were injuries, and with some of them, there was half a dozen missed shots was the difference between them. So it could have gone anyway.
It seriously could have. No, definitely. And the injuries, it felt like when we after that Bendigo win, felt we're peaking, and then Loz goes out with a injury, and it's just the stars just weren't aligned that season. But I think, even with my TCU situation, my first year, we'd started off so well. We'd set the record for, I think it was the most wins in a row, best start to the season. And then we had our starting point guard go down, our post player go down, our starting two guard go down. So it's that season had started off so well and then plateaued, and, we didn't make the NCAA tournament. First time that I hadn't made it my whole college career. But then the next year, it kind of just set us up to have that sort of pinnacle year that we had. And you know what? I'm thinking it's going to be the same thing at Sydney.
Yeah.
You can't it's once you're at, and I'm not going to say it's rock bottom, but once you're at rock bottom, the only way is up. And so I'm very excited for what this WNBL season holds.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Agnes, it's been great having you on the show. It's been great talking about all this stuff. It's a fascinating conversation. Really enjoyed the talk, and can't wait to see you on the floor, not only in the NBL1, but also in the upcoming WNBL season.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's been really awesome chatting with you too. Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you get our latest pod. And we really appreciate if we could get a like and a review so we can extend the reach to more listeners. And don't forget, Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.